Welcome to 247 Real Talk. I'm your host, Julian Perry. It's a pleasure to be here with you on what is probably the first really warm night of 2025 in New York. We're still in spring, but yesterday, today, and probably tomorrow and beyond, at least tomorrow, I think we're going to get to the 90s. Feels like early summer, and I won't complain, but it is quite a swing up from where we were last week. I hope you guys had a great week. My week's been good. Usual physical therapy with my repaired knee. Usual struggles with the knee that needs to be repaired. You cannot tell from just looking at it because all you see is my backdrop, but I have started my transition to my new studio space, studio office built in the lower level of my home in the basement. It's slightly smaller than this space, but it's well built in terms of sound and sound isolation. I'm finding out already working in there today that there may be some challenges because it seems to be pushing the portable air conditioners, an EcoFlow Wave 3. You can look that up to the max. And it's comfortable but not cold. Not as cool as I would like it. So I don't know with all that insulation above, all the sides, insulated door, all spaces closed off, and certain materials that are used, wood and not certain wood with certain panels and not sheetrock. If I'm actually holding heat in. So we'll see as time goes by and the summer comes and what adjustments I have to make. But I've begun the transition. It will be probably another couple of months before I'm down there permanently, but hopefully I'm recording from there within the next few weeks, and we'll sure let you guys know, and the backdrop will be different, so you certainly will know. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Welcome to my subscribers, my loyal subscribers, my new subscribers, although they have still not that many in the numbers I would like, but we keep on the conversations, we keep going. And this week, as I thought about what I was going to talk about, once again, I had something in mind, and then something happened today I heard on the radio, and I felt like I was forced to change topics and come up with this and come up with my thoughts really quickly, because what I'm hearing or what I heard today has got to be another cry for this nation, a cry for humanity. So, I want to be right back in a moment, and we're going to have probably a short episode, but enough to leave you with food for thought. So sit back, relax, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back, and let's get right into it. So I'm driving, I want to say home from physical therapy this morning, or maybe two, I don't remember which direction. And I'm listening to 1010 Winds New York, and I hear that, and I want to make sure, please, both sides of the aisle, and I say while there are several political ideologies, the two main political ideologies are Democrat and Republicans, right? Both sides of the aisle, sit back, take a deep breath. This is not a partisan topic that I'm discussing. This is a human rights, right to life. So I hear that somewhere between 2020 and 2022, the previous administration put protections in place for those states where abortion is banned that ensure that if a woman goes to the emergency room and aborting the pregnancy is the only way to save her life, or the way to save her life, that supersedes any state law or any kind of abortion ban. Today I heard that those policies are being removed, rescinded, or whatever. And while some people may have emotional, angry, whatever, I have to say that I was driving, and if you see my face, it probably had the look of bewilderment. And here's what crossed my mind. This is not a Republican problem. This is not a Democratic problem. This is a human problem. The episodes that you heard me talk about abortion, I was very general about it, and I left all decisions or any imposition on decisions to women. It's their bodies, it's their right. That's my position. I was surprised to find out in my own personal way how many women were actually against abortion. I didn't criticize them. I didn't dissect their thought process or their position, because they're women and they have their reasons, whatever they are. And no matter what side of the issue you're on, I respect the right of a woman to make that decision, and for women only to battle this out, not for men to make imposition on them or to decide for them. But when it comes to an emergency room and saving the life, to me, that's not an issue of abortion. Should not be governed by any rules pro or con abortion, and should not even require a law. It should be simply what's morally, ethically, spiritually, humanly correct. So let's discuss a few scenarios really quickly. And what I said will be a short episode. I don't have my main clock in front of me, so I'm kind of looking at the one on the recorder. A woman goes to the emergency room. She has something like an ectopic pregnancy. And this is an example they gave in the news today. Unless there's clear guidance, which gets very muddy, right? Any kind of guidance gets muddy. Because you cannot, I think, humanly cover every single scenario out there, and any gray area may cost a mother her life. If a woman is pregnant, irrespective of how far she is in the pregnancy, and she goes to the emergency room and her life is threatened by that pregnancy, if a qualified doctor says the choice is one or the other, I would assume that the first option would be whether the pregnancy is far enough along so they can still deliver a premature child and bring that child to full growth. But I don't think there's any scenario where the option is, because of political ideology, because of popularity of one side or the other, that there should be a question. If a mother, if a woman, a human being's life is in danger, a person who's already here versus a person who's not yet here, and we have to save a life. I can't see any circumstance where you decide that you're going to save that child and kill that woman, unless that woman is deemed to be, I guess, and there are exceptions to everything. So let's think about it for a second. If a woman is deemed to be in her sound mind and says, save my child, not me, there might be a scenario. I know you guys are probably looking at me right now and saying, are you nuts? No, I'm not. Let's take one scenario here. A woman is pregnant, has terminal cancer, has weeks to live. She might decide, save my child so my husband and family can have a part of me when I'm gone. Moral decision, humane decision, personal decision, not political decision, not which side of the aisle you're on decision, not any kind of ideological decision. That's one scenario I can think of where I can say a mother says, save my child. If the mother is told that the child has more chance of survival than she does, I'm not talking about terminally ill now. Maybe someone has a horrific accident. She's conscious for a short while. the doctor say, look, we can save your baby, or we can take it and try to save you. But where you're looking, the injuries you have, we have more chance of saving the child than saving you. And the woman, and maybe your husband, father, whatever, decide, save the child. Again, personal decision. Not political, not a governmental, not ideological, personal. But if you have a scenario where a woman goes to the hospital and she's pregnant, and it's a clear-cut choice of, to save this woman's life, I need to remove this child and take this child's life. No one wants to take a life. You guys hear me long enough to know how deeply spiritual and in touch with who I am and whose I am. But to me, the choice is very clear. And it's not one that should cause a doctor to hesitate because of their thought process of, well, I have a woman laying in front of me. My first sworn oath and primary concern is, as a medical doctor, I swore an oath to save lives, to help lives, to redeem lives in a medical way. But I'm going to let this woman die because I'm Republican or I'm Democrat. I'm going to let this woman die because it is my personal belief, and I'm allowing that to supersede my oath, my medical oath. This is not a decision that should be for debate politically in our country. It is, as far as I am concerned, and you can disagree with me, it is not a part of the debate about abortion. It is a conversation about ethical, moral practice and responsibility. There should never have been a need for an administration to put policies in place that legally hold a person responsible, or legally protect a doctor in a state where abortion is banned, to save a life and protect that doctor from prosecution. That doctor's oath, first and foremost, is the life. And those who are elected to public office, when they're sworn in, what do they swear on? A piece of paper? A comic book? No. They swear on a Bible. Our Creator created life, and men are making laws determining which life should go. That is not our decision. That doctor goes and sees the scenario, assesses the scenario, and needs to be clear and able, without consequence, to make the right, moral, humane, and ethical decision according to their oath to do what is right for the survival in that scenario, whatever it is. If it is a scenario where they can save the child but the mother will die, but they're deemed that, like I said, the mother is terminally ill, the mother still has a say in that. Women should have a right to their own bodies. They say, I don't care who's president, I don't care who's in charge, I don't care who's in Washington. Women should have the right to choose. But that's my personal opinion. I don't get into debate with women because I never thought that there were people who would actually, women would actually argue against each other on this issue. I always heard women talk about their right to choose. One woman has a right to choose to preserve life. One woman may have a right to choose to abort life. But listen to what we're saying. On either side of the coin, we're preserving the right to choose. If a woman makes a decision to abort a pregnancy, and then at the end of her life, the true judge or creator says to her, when she leaves this place, that was a wrong decision, that's between her and her God. But it is, I said this before in the previous episode, if a woman says, I was raped, if a woman was, we've had many situations in this country where people have been raped by family members, where the same medical practitioners say there's a high probability that that child will be born deformed, handicapped, and have a struggle their entire lives. And they're not yet born. We have people who are saying they don't care, it's not your choice. With all these known factors, almost guaranteed. Nothing is 100% guaranteed because we don't make life, right? But with all those medical guarantees or medical predictions based on decades, hundreds of years of practice and knowledge, we choose to bring a child into the world who then comes in handicapped, deaf, dumb, paralyzed, whatever, has to live their entire life not knowing what it is to freely live as a healthy human being, has to be always taken care of, becomes a responsibility and, dare I say it, a sort of burden on their caretaker, and a caretaker who then says, I need help, and have to turn to the same administration or the same body, and by then there'll be a different person in the administration. I'm saying the same body, the same legal, the same elected government, the same type of structure, who will say to her, well, I'll cover this for your child, but I won't cover that. You have to find the money out of pocket to pay for this child to have an iota, a semblance of a decent life, when they're the ones who forced you to bring this child into the world in the first place and have that child punished. This is a ridiculous conversation. The more I have it with you, the more it doesn't make sense to me. What goes on in the emergency room is a medical practice to save lives. The decision in there should be left to the person if they're deemed responsible to make that decision, the medical doctors who can provide the advice, and possibly, of course, the immediate family, a husband, wife, who may make that decision together. A husband may walk into an emergency room and the doctor may say to the husband, we can save your wife's life or your child's life. A husband may say that we have 4 children together. I can't raise them alone. I love this unborn child, but I choose my wife to spend the rest of my life with that we've already started. Or a husband, wife may say, the wife may look lovely, a husband say, I've only got 6 weeks to live, I have terminal cancer. Do me a favor, raise and love our child. And that's their decision. Everything I've told you has nothing political in it. No political interference, no political opinions, no ideological opinions, sheer humanity. There are times when government says, oh, we need to get out to people's lives. But when we need them to get out their lives, they're present in every single step we take. This is a decision regardless of who you are, regardless of what you believe in. You might hear this podcast and listen and watch this podcast and say, I completely disagree with Julian because I am pro-life. But my question would be, if you're lying in an emergency room, you have a family, a husband, children, surrounded by love, you are terminally ill, and the doctor says, they're making a decision for you. Or better yet, because that scenario doesn't work for me. Let me repeat that. You're surrounded by your family. You're surrounded by your other 3 children. You're pregnant. And the doctor says to you, your children, and your husband, here are my options medically. I can take this child and save your mother's life. Or I can save this child and your mother will lose her life. I can't save both. What decision do you think those children who are looking at mommy, who need mommy, that husband who's looking at women, many women who are in an attacked family are the glue to the family, what decision would they make? And here they are, watching their mother die, watching a perfectly capable doctor standing before them, whose hands are handicapped because they live in a state where abortion is banned. And the clock is ticking. And the doctor says, if I take this baby and save your mother's life, I get prosecuted and can go to jail. I break the law. I cannot make a medical, humane decision. I cannot make a decision based on the oath I swore. I have to make a decision based on the political ideology that governs the country at that time. This conversation is not about just today. It's what I heard today, but this is a conversation of our lifetimes. To decide that we're going to be better human beings and do the right thing. To put our differences aside and choose life. We have got to start thinking about the betterment of life. We've got to start thinking about each other in a way that supports each other, because all of our circumstances are different. Even if there's a woman who says, I was raped, and it's not by a family member, there's not the condition of the child being born deformed. I don't know what you say to a woman who has to raise a child that came from a rape. And politicians say, well, when a child is born, they can put a child for adoption. There are many parents out there who want a child. But they say, on the other hand, how much of a burden this is putting financially on their budgets that they want to, pass for other reasons. We have got, just like we need separation of the judiciary, the branches of government, we need separation of the medical practice. The medical industry, society, the doctors who we look to every time something goes wrong, from the common cold to cancer to every sickness you can think about. I've got friends who died recently from ALS, more than one. No cure. Imagine a mother who has ALS who's pregnant. No cure. Every person I have known, one is my daughter's godmother, my childhood friend who died from ALS. One was a dear woman who worked for me for many years and retired. We kept in touch. And she would follow this podcast. She was a really staunch supporter. And every episode, she would send me a message on Facebook Messenger. And then she told me she had ALS, and she told me she was using some app to communicate, and it got slower. And then about end of January, February this year, I noticed I hadn't heard from her. She lived alone as far as I know. I don't know her caretakers. I couldn't get a hold of her. And one day, about a month ago, I decided to type her name and type obituary just to see what happens, and up popped on the internet her obituary. She was dead. A mother, my friend, who had ALS, if she were pregnant and lived in a state where abortions were banned, ALS, we know to this point, there is no cure. Are you telling me that that woman should not have the right to say, save my child? Now, I'm not talking about polar opposites here. I'm talking about their choice. I know that I'm telling you that if a mother is going to die and you have to abort the child, then I believe that the doctor makes a decision. If the decision makes sense to save that mother's life, because that's medically, then that's what they should do. But the scenario with ALS, I'm telling you about my friend, is also supporting the choice. We need to stop trying to tell people how to live their lives and what to do on these very intimate and personal matters. I understand that there's a gray area, right? I understand that you could have a woman who got pregnant and the father is, looking forward to the child, and then they had an argument and they went out and they got into an accident, they went to the hospital, and they're telling the doctor, take the child, right? Even if they're gonna die. And the husband wants to say, no, let the child live. There's always gray areas. I know that's a far out scenario, but I've learned in life everything and anything can happen. My point is politics, political ideologies, personal ideologies have no part when doctors are faced with making a decision, the right decision based on the medical case in front of them to save whichever life they can. We keep going down one path after another to destruction. We keep destroying the very essence of what humanity is supposed to be. We keep peeling away at who our Creator created us to be. And there are few of us standing and fighting for what's right, reminding the world that we did not create ourselves, reminding the world that despite what they want to believe so that their consciences are clear, there is still a truth of who we are and whose we are. I beg of you, choose humanity, choose life, stand on the side of who created us, stand on the side of righteousness according to our core as human beings. And that's how we got here and who brought us here. Stand in support of life, because everything else is temporary. But if you believe as I do, and that when we leave here, as the Bible promised, as biblically is promised, we will once again, one day meet our Creator and stand before our Creator in judgment. And those who choose righteousness, and those who choose God and choose to fear God, and to live a life that supports what is biblically true, will reap the benefits of living a righteous life. Righteous in humanity, void of the coloring and the tainting of greed and personal preferences that contradict who we are and whose we are. I want you to think carefully. I want you to go Google this story and find out more about it. And think of all those scenarios. Those of you of my listeners who are doctors, I'm sure this is something that weighs on your mind heavily, especially if your only desire in becoming a doctor was to be purely a doctor and isolated from political interference or interference of any other kind. Just as we do every week, as we chat and we fight for what's right for us humankind, do all of us a favor and make the decision to choose life. Until the next time, take care of yourselves and please take care of each other.